Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Raj Thuppal. He's the Chief Digital Officer for Transport Canada. He'll be talking about taking the next step, maturing departmental transformation. Transport Canada is a fairly mature organization, as we heard from the previous speaker, to say the very least. Um, right now, he is providing executive leadership and management direction for Transport Canada's transformation and service modernization. In this key role, Raj leads the way we transform and redesign programs and services that we deliver to Canadians. He's also the Chief Information Officer and the Chief Data Officer. So he's a Chief Data Officer. So he's got three hats that he's wearing. And you can ask him quite a range of questions for this particular presentation. So without further ado, Raj, I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me to come.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to come here and speak to this audience. I wish we were in a physical room where we could actually see each other physically, and I would be able to see you. But we will manage with this for now, and hopefully with all the vaccines vaccination going on, we will have the opportunity to meet in person. So again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'll walk you quickly through the story of transformation in Transport Canada, where we are today, how we got here, and then where do we go from here. Personally, for me, I joined from Shared Services Canada in April of this year, and a lot of work has happened prior to my arrival. You probably heard some from Phil previously, and also my predecessor, Julie. She was leading the transformation before me, and they did an amazing job at Transport in getting us to this place. Again, I'd like to share some of the successes, some of the things that we have learned over the period, and also where do we go from here. So like I mentioned, over the past 5 years, there has been it didn't happen over the last year, it happened over the last 5 years. There were a lot of tools, modern set of tools and technologies that were implemented. And we predominantly changed how we deliver services. And again, there is a lot of evidence of what the change has been and how it helped us. COVID-19 response to COVID-19 is one of the examples of how we change the internal delivery or the services that are facing internally, and also some of the services we provide externally to citizens and businesses. So how we did it and what comes next. Before that, maybe a bit of background about transportation system and Transport Canada, who we are. Again, Canadian transportation system links people to jobs. It links products to consumers. Again, if you have bought anything in store recently, there is some kind of a transportation system that was involved in bringing those goods to you. And then how we connect our regions and communities, and then how we fit into the overall global supply chain. Again, I won't read some of the stats here. As you can see, we do have a number of mechanisms for transportation, number of marine ports, the airports, the rail tracks, and the rail companies, and then the public roads and that we have that provides, that is part of the transportation system. Overall, from a Transport Canada perspective, we help in keeping the transportation system moving, and also safety and security is a big piece of that. And the work that we do impacts every Canadian citizen every single day. So it's a very important mandate from a Canadian public service perspective. And personally, I'm I feel fortunate to be here and proud to be part of public service at large, and also part of Transport Canada now, and leveraging a lot of experience from Shared Services Canada and working with my colleagues there to move our agenda forward. So our mandate, again, breaking this down a bit more on what exactly we do and how we provide these services to the transportation system. It's through a set of legislations and regulations. These are made to ensure that the transportation system operates safely and responsibly. We do have a number of policies which guide our interactions with industry partners. and with the Canadians and inform how we work internally. There are a number of guidelines, and these are published to help our industry partners interpret and also implement their legislative and regulatory requirements. We also do oversight. I think that's one of the major functions of the department. And these oversight activities are Transport Canada's opportunity to ensure that the rules are being followed. Transport Canada employees across country conduct inspections for all forms of commercial transportation, as well as transportation of dangerous goods, which is again a very important function, and to confirm that the transportation system is running safely and responsibly. Transport Canada, we also provide services to industry and directly to Canadians. This includes issuing licenses and permits and also distributing official publications. So I mentioned about 5 years back, the transformation plan was developed, and we've been working on the transformation over the last 5 years. So what triggered that? Again, there were a number of challenges we faced, and some of them we face even today. The growing transportation system, both in terms of the goods and the travelers, it was growing. This had the supply chain impacts that we had to address, and challenge the processes that we had that weren't scalable. Again, there were some major changes done. We still are having some of these that we are adjusting and moving forward. The other big one is the digital innovation. Like the citizens, businesses, and the transportation sector was going through a digital innovation, and it was creating new and impending regulatory changes like drones, autonomous vehicles, to name a few. We didn't have the agility to react to these rapidly changing and evolving technologies, nor the expertise to effectively regulate them. Meanwhile, travelers were being offered seamless digital experience in other parts of life. Like for all of us, when we experience this in banking, we experience this in our entertainment sector, where digital is becoming part of our day-to-day, how we get services from other constituents. Also, a number of high-profile security incidents have raised the level of scrutiny over the oversight programs. While we also had to react to the growing number of cyber threats as well. Finally, the increased pace of information presented us with certain challenges, but also opportunities to engage more meaningfully and immediately with the stakeholders and Canadians. So at that time, we didn't have the systems and practices and culture in place to respond to the change. And we have come a long way from there, but we are still continuing the path and going to the next level. So a new vision for Transport Canada was created at that time. We went through a comprehensive review to address some of these long-standing issues. This included financial issues. This ended up being the impetus for change that our department needed. So the transformation vision, as you see in the slide, was created. It is pretty simple. Being agile keeps our department focused on what's coming and be able to adapt to change. Being smart can mean many things, but in short, we wanted to ensure that everything we do is supported by best possible evidence, data, research, and risk assessments. So being a data-driven organization was very important for us to ensure that we are making the right decisions at the right time based on the right data that we had. Again, being trusted is very, very important for the credibility. And in the digital era, the trusted gives in a lot of new paradigms and implications. So that was another important aspect of the transformation. The next slide shows you a very high-level overview of the transformation plan. We had 5 streams of work, starting with the intelligent policies and programs. These needed to be redesigned to be agile and be adaptable to the challenges that we faced. The service innovation, we needed to do everything with a service mindset and to be able to, whether it is internal facing or external facing, and then having that service innovation in everything that we do was very important. transparency and public trust. This needed to be considered across all our business lines and was applied by default for all public engagement and projects. And that was a critical piece of the work, part of the transformation plan. Again, data-driven decisions, I touched on this earlier. These are enabled by having the right tools, the expertise, and also the processes to maximize the information we had at our disposal, and also to identify the data that we didn't have and to go seek it. And last but not the least, it's about being a modern and inclusive workforce, again, aligned to the Beyond 2020 vision from the the PCO. We basically aligned that and then brought it into our transformation plan, which has actually helped us quite a bit. Not sure if Phil touched on it, on how we pivoted to remote work during the COVID. So these 5 pillars has began to pay dividends through major accomplishments and also some of the incremental progress that we made over the last 5 years. So again, the slide captures a lot of the accomplishments that against these different streams of work that I briefly talked about. Again, I don't want to read through each one of them. Happy to share the slides, and you'll see again a lot of progress have been made, a lot of experimentation and innovation in leveraging new technologies, in delivering the services we deliver in an innovative way, in an efficient way, using data and using the tools required to provide services. Next slide, what we learned. So the biggest one is never waste a good crisis. I think from a Transport Canada perspective, we had a crisis 5 years back, so we leveraged it, we pivoted to become a modern service provider, and we are continuing on that momentum and moving forward. COVID was another major crisis, and again, not only Transport Canada, the government at large leveraged it to provide modern services both internally to public servants and also externally to the citizens. And our successes are a testament to what we can accomplish as a whole. Again, many of you can relate to it from the departments that you are in and what you were able to do in the last year. The next one is to be honest with ourselves. And also I believe in fully understanding where we are, acknowledging the challenges, acknowledging the problems that we have, for us to derive those solutions which will solve those problems. So the self-assessment, the current state assessment is very, very critical prior to commencing a transformation journey. Again, personally for me, I've experienced this quite a bit in Shared Services Canada as well. And Transport Canada, when my colleagues started speaking to me, that resonated very well with me about understanding where we are before we plan to go to a new place. This is exactly like in our personal lives. If we don't know where we are, it's very difficult to draw a map to where we want to be. So that's a key piece of a lesson, and we have learned it and we are applying it to all the future work that we do. And then the big one is the change, managing the change. It's not easy to manage change because not everyone will see the problems or challenges the way you see or the way one sees. So making sure that we have a common platform, a common challenge that has been acknowledged by everyone, and then bringing everyone towards a solution, bringing everyone right from the working level to the board, to the stakeholders, to the citizens in going through that change, because everybody is impacted in a major change. So that has been, again, probably a lot of people have similar lessons through the changes that you have led, and also from what we have seen in the government context in the last year and a half. So where do we go from here? So our deputy says this: we have to climb the Mount Everest. We have come to the base camp. Now we need to move to the next peak. I think for me, this has given me an opportunity to understand what the department has done over the last 5 years, where we are today, And then what do we need to stabilize? What are the things that we need to cash in of the things that we have gained over the last 5 years, and then set up a plan that can take us to the next peak. So for some of the foundational things, having the right practices, processes, and discipline, and the mindset and the culture that is required to be able to do that. Technology plays a big piece. The policy and regulatory challenges and addressing them, the expectations on safety and security, both in the current situation and also in the future situation, which is being defined, is very, very critical. Again, I touched on the change management. So we need our people to understand transformation. What are the concrete items, and then how does it change their day-to-day life, and how can it actually benefit them in delivering better service to Canadians. That's also a key aspect in delivering that. At the end of the day, if you look at everything we do, we provide services. As public servants, we provide services. Whether we provide services internally to our own staff, or we provide services to Canadian citizens, or based on the mandate that we have, there is a service aspect that we are accountable for from a departmental perspective. So what we have done is we are, through a lot of internal consultation, we are pivoting to a new transformation plan with 4 themes. Service modernization being the overarching one, because everything we do is a service, and we want to modernize the services that we provide to all our internal and external facing constituents. Oversight modernization, that's a big piece of what we do. Like I mentioned, the whole inspectorate and the work that is done by the inspectors, and how can we use modern technology to modernize the services they provide. So that's one of the big external facing service that we are modernizing, and applying the lessons learned will help us going there. With the current situation that we are in, where predominantly everyone is working remotely, to what the future might be. The future likely be a hybrid situation. So how do we provide the tools required for our employees to be able to be effective in what they do, and being effective in providing the services they provide? To support all these, we need certain foundational capabilities. It is the infrastructure that we need, the cybersecurity that needs to be baked in, some of the disciplines and processes that we need to be able to drive the modernization that is required, along with the data, which is also a key foundational piece that is required for us to make the right decisions at the right time to be able to modernize services. So this is what our new transformation plan is looking like, and we are driving towards that. Again, I covered some of these in the slides here. In my speaking points. So again, you can have a copy of the slides so that you can go through this. And if anyone have any questions, feel free to reach. And happy to talk to you all in a different forum. And basically, our next steps is focused on the growth, the continuous mindset, the continuous improvement, and then having that digital mindset in the way we work. Fortunately, in Transport Canada, what I find, I'm sharing some of my personal observations here in the 2 months in the job. Many of my business colleagues and their organizations have a digital mindset. So they are supportive and actually pulling us in moving to digital, which is a great advantage for me and my team, as we don't have to push technology. We are being asked to deliver on new technology platforms for our internal customers, who in turn provide services to Canadians. So, like I mentioned, one of the big things that we are moving towards is using that service-oriented mindset, and then putting services first, and then leveraging technology and digital to deliver services in a better way. I mentioned as well in my opening that we were very good in experimentation and innovation. Right now, we are looking at how do we make that into concrete practices? How do we make sure that we lock in those experimentations and innovation, and then be sustainable in delivering that consistently. And then at the end of it, we are part of the GC community, and we will be one embracing enterprise services and also contributing towards enterprise services. So that's how we are structuring ourselves and also structuring the plan in delivering services to Canadians in a most effective way, working with the community at large in providing these services. With that, I'll end my presentation here. If there are questions or comments, or if there are any feedback for follow-up, happy to do that. So Rob?
Oh, thank you very much, Raj. It was much appreciated. It was a great presentation. I like the themes that you've touched upon. For example, the moving into service modernization, oversight modernization. Everybody will focus on service modernization, but the oversight modernization and the future of work are not necessarily all that well addressed. And it's great to see you do that. Now, I'm just going to go and take a look at questions. We have one question. As the government of Canada is moving towards digitization, can you present the challenges and obstacles that delay digital transformation within government?
Sorry, Rob, can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, sorry. As the government of Canada is moving towards digitization, well, we're already, pretty highly digitized. What are the challenges and obstacles that you find in your path and that delay digital transformation within an organization?
That's a very good question. There are a number of them. I think the key is to identify them and ensure that we tackle them. The biggest one is the digital literacy. Having a good understanding of digital technologies and what it can provide, both not just from the technologists, but also from the business side. For people needs to understand what digital means and then pivoting to digital. Also, since as we move to digital, privacy and cybersecurity risks play a predominant role. So making sure that we take that into consideration as we design any new digital service is an important thing to do. I think that the last one is data. How can we leverage data in making those decisions? In many cases, we don't have the data to make decisions. So what are the mechanisms we put in place to identify the data and then manage it and then keep and make it available for transformation is a key foundational piece that needs to be looked at.
Okay, thank you. We got another question. What are the tools such as frameworks and best practices you use to measure the digital transformation maturity scale?
That's a very good question. We are currently in the process of identifying how do we measure the benefits and the benefits realization. I personally don't know of the frameworks, but definitely having the right KPIs against each of the benefits from transformation is a key aspect. We are actually going through that right now. So if somebody has an answer to this, please help us as well.
Have you used any of the CMMI, the Capability Management Maturity Institute work? That's now part of ISACA, actually. Go ahead.
Okay. Now I'm familiar with the CMMI. It's been a while since I've used them, but if there is a direct link to what we can use for the transformation piece, that will be good to do as well. Thanks, Rob, for that. We'll take a look.
Okay, that's good. Do we have any other questions? Yes. You said there was little resistance to this approach from your business colleagues. You understood the need for digital transformation and how to go about it to improve step by step. How did that understanding from business come about? I think it's a fairly common challenge.
I think I had to give credit to my predecessor for taking time and running workshops with various groups in listening to the ground staff on what challenges they have and how digital can solve it. So a lot of it happened through that kind of interactions. And again, it's with co-sponsorship. So it was the digital, the CDO working with the business counterpart in bringing the organization together in understanding what digital can do, and then showing them how it can benefit their jobs. So I think it has to do a lot with the consultations and engagements, and bringing third parties to come and talk to them. That has helped quite a bit in increasing the digital literacy and the demand, and generating the demand for services.
So, well, so what you're saying is that Julie leases soft skills and collaboration and team building.
That's right.
You know, and that's a critical element too. We can't just say it's logical. Why don't they buy into it? You know, you need to bring them along. Some people are terrified of technology. No, thank you very much. That's a good one. Here we go. We got another question here. So I'll just go and. What are the examples of services that Transport Canada has transformed or is planning to transform? How before and after looks like for these services and your clients?
So I'll give one example that I'm familiar with. The one is like there are a number of Transport Canada centers across Canada. I think when COVID hit, some of these centers were turned into a virtual service. So that's one that was transformed. The other one I could say is the TC account. Now people can apply for some services digitally online. That's another service that has been modernized. So we are working on another one, which is called the cost recovery modernization. This is to the payment of fees and how do we apply for fees. So instead of being paper-based manual processes, this is being modernized into an electronic form that can be submitted. So those are a few examples, but there are a number of examples, other examples as well, both in the marine cargo, and how do we use technology to enable better tracking and identification of equipment. So there are a number of examples where there is, again, I touched on the mostly the external facing ones. There's quite a bit that has happened internally as well. We have leveraged the remote access tools and also the Microsoft 365 with Power BI to generate financial reports and HR reports. That's helping quite a bit internally, or all the RC managers in understanding the resources and also forecasting and how can we better manage or administer the resources that we have. So there's quite a few examples on that side too. And one other example is robotic process automation. We are leveraging that for our HR transactions. And again, these are in early stages, but there's quite a bit of work happening there as well.
You mentioned that the Port of Vancouver is, there's been a lot of work done there. Can you maybe talk to some of that, or
no, I'm not very familiar with that, Rob. Maybe.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay. You mentioned good crises such as COVID-19, where you learn from. What about bad crises? Would you get some lessons from?
Well, definitely. I mean, COVID is, I wouldn't say it's a good crisis. It was a crisis.
Yes.
It was not good from many angles. So crisis is always, there's two sides to crisis, right? Like there is people impacted. Even personally, we are all impacted, whether depending on what hat we wear, right? Personally, we might be impacted. Professionally, that might give us an impetus to do something differently. So usually any crisis has two sides to it, in my opinion. It depends on from which lens we see it. I think some really bad situations could be cyber events. Like those are pretty bad events, right? When you have cybersecurity incidents hitting you, there is a lot of loss of data, loss of services, and those are never good. Those are never good. And how do we prevent them? I think that's the biggest one, right? And some of these are preventable. How do we prevent them is the biggest one. And then if you can't prevent them, how can you detect them soon enough? Right? Not just for cybersecurity, for any of them. That's why risk management, risk identification, and having mitigation plans having scenario planning, drills for different things is very, very important. So that's the biggest, I think, unforeseen things that happen. That's where we learn stuff that we normally know. I don't think anyone scenario planned COVID crisis. Like that was not in any emergency management. For most part, not in many organizations. So that's a pretty bad one, but we all learned from it quite a bit.
Okay, this is sort of a double-barreled question coming up. Can you give examples of how data-driven decision initiative has built transparency and public trust at TC, and also how the data has been transformed into insight?
So I don't have a specific example to give, but generally, like we do have a platform right now, which we leverage for data analytics, and that has helped in many of the situations where we had to provide some policy advice. That data has been used for that. I don't have a specific example with me right now, but definitely on the one of the example is the financial data that we use for day-to-day management of our finances. That has helped us quite a bit in both from the availability of data and also analysis of the data in providing a proper reporting to the managers like us in understanding our financial situation and also forecasting for the future. So that's been a clear example of how data can be used in decision making.
Oh, that's great. Now, anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, that ends the session. Thank you ever so much for coming out, Raj, and talking to us. It's been very incisive, and just to let everybody know, both the slides and the recording first, will be made available to all attendees. The slides will have to just do a screening of them and convert them into PDF for sharing for the like. Well, anyways, thank you ever so much. Okay, Raj, that was wonderful. You took the time. I call to all the attendees also take a look at the when you're in the hub, you can basically take a look at exhibitors. Exhibitors also include details of some of the professional associations that have teamed up to put this conference on. You might want to take a look at them and also take a look at potentially joining some of them and helping them help government in the Ottawa area. Anyways, without further ado, I thank you very much. I'm just going to wait for a few moments, and we'll just wait for the streaming to stop because otherwise it cuts off the last 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.